Alrighty, how's it going, Mets and overall baseball fans? Thank you guys all so much for chiming in. Happy Merry Christmas Eve to all who celebrate. Happy holidays, folks. And no better time to have your Christmas Eve than potentially give Mets fans heart attacks. That is what we're dealing with. I mean, you could have been at least a little bit more considerate, Ken. This could have waited at least until the weekend was done. Oh, heavens no. It has to get out there in the public that, oh no, there was a medical issue with Carlos Correa, just like the Giants. The sky is falling. My Christmas is ruined. We are going to do our best to break down exactly what is going on with Carlos Correa and why at the juncture, at the time of recording right here, right now, live, 1:50 p.m. Eastern time on Christmas Eve, I do not believe that Carlos Correa's tenure with the Mets is already done. I do believe it is just beginning. But before we get into it all, again, shout out to everyone first chiming in the live show. I greatly appreciate it. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button. Really does mean a lot. Help us get a 25K subs for your next short-term goal. We have a jersey giveaway coming out more than likely next week for either a Justin Verlander, a Kodai Senga, or as long as the medical stuff is all cleared out, Carlos Correa jersey to one lucky winner that will be picking in a future live stream over the next week. Stay tuned for that. That is a thank you for 20,000 subscribers. And of course, I have to let you all know that today's show is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your sports betting needs. Make sure you head over to betonline.ag using promo code Bleav at BLEAV. That way you get a 50% off welcome bonus. BetOnline, it's where the games begin. And now, folks, let's let the show begin. Guys, I set up the show, the stream at the time of recording this. I set it up last night because I was like, you know what, just 2 days not talking Mets bothers me. I want to go live here. I just give a nice little roundup of everything that's going on prior to Christmas happening tomorrow. And I set it up for 1:45 p.m. Eastern time last night at midnight. And then we find out the news around today at noon. And I was doing some last minute Christmas stuff because I'm a schmuck and I do everything last minute still. And we see the report, the bomb, if you will, from Ken Rosenthal that yes, the Mets, just like the Giants, have concerns with Carlos Correa's physical, and it's regarding the same exact injury that us Mets fans were joking about. Oh my goodness, see the Giants, they just used it as a scapegoat. It was all just cold feet regarding not wanting Carlos Correa. And while I do believe cold feet was a factor, it wasn't to the same extent as I initially believed, because the injury is regarding the surgery that Correa had on his ankle/leg injury, that fibula, back in 2014 when he broke it. And since then, you know, he's been playing perfectly fine. He has not had an injury in that leg, ankle type area since then. However, the concern here for the Mets, and this seems to be the same thing with the Giants, is from a long-term standpoint. Correa is perfectly fine with his health and his leg right now, but on a 12-year deal, the Mets aren't confident, it would seem, that they are going to be, you know, they're not comfortable, rather, with the Mets signing Correa to this type of term, knowing that there might be some injuries down the road with that leg. Let me start off by getting a couple things through the air, okay? One, do I believe that Carlos Correa and the Mets are going to fall through? No, I do not. I don't believe the Mets have much leverage here. When Steve Cohen tells John Heyman of the New York Post to break the news at 3 a.m. that the Mets were signing Correa and that he was the missing piece, and let's not forget that prior to that, he did a 30-minute interview with John Heyman and Joel Sherman of the New York Post after Correa originally signed with the Giants, sharing his disgruntlement, you know, kind of how upset he was that he missed out on Correa. The Mets are keeping Correa here. It's just a matter, in my humble opinion, until proven otherwise, unless proven otherwise, if it falls through, that we're going to see maybe some type of restructure with this contract. You're going to see some fine print details that maybe, okay, Correa, this deal could be this long, depending on if you play this amount of games and innings, or if you don't, then it'll be this long. You may have opt-out chances depending on how healthy you're going to be. It's going to be structured, in my opinion, very similar to how we've seen Jacob deGrom's multi-year deal structured there with the Texas Rangers. That's my raw reaction right off the riff. We've seen further reporting from Michael Mayer, Metsmerized, that the Mets and Correa getting a deal done is still likely at this point. And Anthony can't even speak, pardon me. Anthony DiComo for the New York Mets on the beat also did state that a deal has by no means not fallen through here. There's still potential here for sure to get it done. And John Heyman reiterated by saying that they're currently in discussions to get something done. I am not viewing this as, oh my goodness gracious, the Mets just lost as Carlos Correa for one bit. But I do want to get into the details here more. But more than anything, I do see some donations. Let me address them real quick, and then we got a lot to get into. We have more things to get into aside from Correa. Correa, but I understand that Correa is going to be the nit and gritty of today's show. So again, appreciate everyone being in here to my roughly 800 live viewers. Greatly appreciate that. The breaking news is that the Mets have concerns with Carlos Correa's physical regarding the same injury that the Giants had concerns with. Now let's see if something does in fact still happen. Is it going to fall through? Again, my firm stance at this juncture is that no, it is not going to fall through. It will stay put. It's just a matter of how exact is this contract going to look. I think it's going to be very detailed, a lot of fine print stuff going on, and they're still going to get the job done. Thank you for the donation, Dave. Happy holidays to you, brother. I appreciate that. Let me see here. Phil, thank you so much. You filthy animals. Let's effing go, Mets. We got this. Dicey will make it work. I wholeheartedly do. And that kind of reiterates what I'm saying here in the live show, guys. I just don't see a world truly where this falls through. Because let's keep in mind, the Giants did not sign Correa because they had concerns with the medical, right? However, the Giants did not even get to the point of trying to restructure a deal with Boras, in which he was allowing. Boras gave the Giants a certain time frame to discuss and restructure things. The Giants didn't even get to that point because they said, no, we need more time to go over things, more time than what they really needed in hindsight, because they had plenty of time to look over the medical at that point. So they didn't even get to a point of considering restructuring a deal with Scott Boras and Carlos Correa side of things, because they just want more time to look at the medical. And because of that reason, because they want more time than what Boras believed they should be getting, that's why they started field calls from others. And that's when Steve Cohen in Hawaii swooped in, got on the phone. He said, I'm sipping a martini. Let's start a conversation. And they signed him to a 12-year, $350 million deal. Now, a big question now is whether or not Carlos Correa is still going to get that exact contract. Is this a situation now for the Mets where maybe they sign him on a shorter term type deal with a high AAV? Wouldn't surprise me. Again, I know how much Cohen is enamored with Correa. I know how much Cohen loves Correa and how much he wants him. All of us Mets fans want Correa, and as do I. And at the end of the day, unless this deal completely falls through, and if that happens, we will have a whole separate discussion. Unless it completely falls through, I almost view this as a positive for the Mets. And before you call me crazy, let me explain why. Carlos Correa on a 12-year deal until he's 40. How many of you truly believe he's going to play those full 12 years, right? I'm under the stance personally that Carlos Correa will even retire prior to that contract being done during his time in Queens, right? I do not foresee a world as of now where Carlos Correa will play up until he's 40. Same way with Francisco Lindor. I think they will both retire maybe a couple of years before those deals actually end. Because again, for Correa's deal, he's at 28. You hope to get 5-6 years of him in his absolute prime, still giving you great baseball at third base and with the hitting. So let's talk in the scenario right now. Maybe, just maybe, this deal is higher AAV, but instead of 12 years, it could be 10 years, maybe 8. I think it would be hard to do anything less than 10, unless, again, it comes to the situation where Correa is down, because Correa wants to be a New York Met. Steve Cohen wants Correa to be a New York Met. Steve Cohen flew his ass with a private jet, that being in Correa, as soon as they made the agreement to sign Correa from Houston all the way to New York to get the physical done. There's so many reasonings as to why this deal is still very much likely to happen versus a fallout. And on top of that, if Steve Cohen doesn't sign Correa, who the hell else is going to? If you have the baddest mofo on the planet, the best owner in not only baseball, but you can argue in North American sports, not signing Correa to that type of deal and it falls through completely, there's no chance in how Correa is going to get a long-term deal elsewhere other than it being a short-term deal. Is this a scenario where Carlos Correa could be doing a couple short-term deals for the remainder of his career? I doubt it. I'm firmly under the belief that this will get done. The only thing you're looking at is a potential restructure. How much leverage do the Mets have? Not too much, as I'd like to mention. But the counter is, it's not like Correa has a shit ton of suitors, pardon my French. He doesn't. This is a situation where the Mets are in a spot where, yes, he might not have a lot of leverage, but who else is going to go out there and give him the money? And again, Correa having the satisfaction of reuniting with Francisco Lindor. He literally tackled, it was reported, he tackled Scott Boras on his bed in the hotel room when Boras got the negotiations done. He wants to be a Met. You do not see that happen with every player. Yes, he's happy with the bag. Who isn't? The point is Correa, you can already tell, wants to be a Met more than he wanted to be a San Francisco Giant. And that's where you get into the cold feet situation a little bit more regarding the Giants and Correa. From what we saw, again, the fact that the Giants didn't even get to the point of restructuring a deal because they wanted more time, it seemed like that there was, to an extent, a fairly mutual agreement amongst both sides, both the Giants camp and Correa's camp, that they were okay with parting ways because Giants want more time. Correa's camp, Boris said, no, we're not going to do that. So it's like, okay, all right, that's it. That's it. We're not going to do this anymore. So I am under the belief that Correa miss is still going to happen. I got the newspaper to hopefully frame on my wall soon with Correa on it and everything that Steve Cohen has done is in this $800 million offseason. But one thing that I really want to be adamant about here, folks, is yes, this is fairly concerning. I understand everyone that has concerns. Me personally, I'm really just not one of them right now until proven otherwise. Yes, do I like the fact that this is happening prior to Christmas? No, but who doesn't? Cohen is a dummy. PG, it's okay to just say you're stupid. I mean, hey, we're not always the brightest apples over here. And again, I also take back this stupid comment. Let me make it clear. I think just calling Steve Cohen a dummy is absolutely hilarious. It's the best thing about Steve Cohen is that, yes, he spent $800 million this offseason, but he spent it wisely. He's not he's not acting like a madman. Correa's on a $26.3 million AAV deal for the next 12 years. Yes, that's a long-term deal, but AAV-wise, that's really good for him. Justin Verlander's an overpay, but short-term like Scherzer, so it's okay. It's not like you just sign a 40-year-old for 5 freaking years until he's 45, right? So everything that Steve Cohen has done this offseason has made sense for this club. The only move that you could say has actually been a quote-unquote luxury is Correa, because this is a pleasant surprise that the Mets are getting Correa. Now it's about finalizing this deal and seeing exactly what it is going to look like. So again, I understand the concerns. I'm going to be referencing here in a second the exact article here from Ken Rosenthal. But as I mentioned, I think that this is something that is going to die down in the next couple of days. And if it doesn't, then of course I'm 100% going to talk about it. I'm going to be very upset. The Mets really don't have a pivot in free agency, right? It's Correa or nothing. So I would just be shocked truly if this falls through, for all the reasons I've listed to start today's show. Again, thank you all so much, everyone chiming in. Thank you so much for the donations, the kind words, all that great stuff. Really does mean the world. Again, help us get 25K subs for next short-term goal. And help us get to 400 likes for the On the Live show live or on replay. Greatly appreciate to my north of 900 live viewers. But let's see here. Jeremy, if his physical was clean, he'd be a giant. Media is doing what media does. Steve knew it wouldn't be clean. I'm not super worried. Exactly. Let's also not forget, I'm glad, I should have said this earlier, but Jeremy, thank you for the donation. Boris said he had to spend 45 minutes talking to every team inquiring on Correa when the Giants debacle was happening, explaining what is going on between the Giants and Correa. Steve Cohen knew from the jump what the concerns were from the Giants standpoint, okay? He knew this. So just because of the fact that the Mets have those same concerns doesn't change the fact that Cohen had an idea heading into this. He's not blindsided the way that the Giants felt like they probably were with looking at the medical and seeing, oh my goodness, this guy, he had surgery early in his career on his leg ankle area in 2014, and maybe it hasn't healed properly to their liking. That very well can be the case. I'm not denouncing that. But the point is that it's not an issue now. It's an issue down the road is what the assumption is. And for a Mets team that's in a win-now stage, you can understand why they're still likely to get this deal done. And if anything, they worry about it down the road if it becomes an issue. You just hope for their sake and for Gray's camp that's a deal that is still realistic, right? It's 12 years, $315, not realistic now because you have concerns down the road. Is it that significant of concerns with that leg? Then say, let's talk hypothetical. Every doctor out there is telling the Mets, oh, after 4 years, his leg is cooked. He's going to be freaking on a limp the rest of his career after the next 4 or 5 years. You got him now, that's great, but trust me, that second half plus of that contract is going to be absolutely putrid. And that's what doctors are saying, and I completely get why the Mets have their concerns here. And I'd imagine that to a degree, that is, somewhat of what they're saying, that long-term, we don't love the chances of him staying healthy. But what we do know, again, is that since Correa had this surgery back in 2014, he's never had an issue with it. He's never missed games because of this. So far, so good. The only concerns we've had with Correa is his back issues that he's had ailments of over the past couple of years. That's the bigger concern for me with Correa. But long term, now we're seeing the leg stuff brought up. So it's interesting. Yes, it's not fun. And for anyone that's saying this is LL Mets situation, you have no clue what you're talking about. Steve Cohen is literally a madman. He has done so much for this team. It's the opposite of that. You can understand, however, why the Mets, before they make such a strong investment, want to make sure that there is maybe incentives to this deal that, oh, you'll make this amount of money guaranteed if you play this amount of games for the next number of years, right? It'll be this long of a contract without an opt-out or something, say, if you, again, play this amount of games, this amount of innings, etc. The guaranteed money can change here. How much? I'm not sure, because when you're dealing with Scott Boras, this is not the easiest type of situation to deal with. We're all aware of that. He's not one that loves the idea of having to restructure contracts, but in the very curious case of Carlos Correa here, and the relationship that both Cohen and Boras have built, I do Bleav that Boras will have a slight more willingness to negotiate than, say, he would with other teams that have been stubborn with him. I mean, Boras is very grateful for the dealings that Cohen has done in the past couple of years. So this is not a situation where I feel the Mets are going to be completely blindsided and then there you go, the deal falls through. But of course, God forbid, if that hypothetical were to happen, we will discuss it. I will not be happy. No one will, but I have a lot more optimism with this than I think a lot of other fans feel. And of course, there's bias in it. I'm not going to lie and say that there isn't. But out of everything that I've discussed here, there are valid reasonings as to why this deal will not fall through, but rather may just look a little bit different, or maybe drastically different than what we initially realized heading into this one. But Jeremy, thank you for the donation. Pat Mets, thank you for the dono. The deal gets done. He says, now that the Giants and Mets found the same thing, where can Correa go for a similar deal? The Twins? Nah, I don't see. I don't think I'm not even really pondering the idea of another team coming in and swooping Correa away from the Mets. I'm really not. I think that this is Steve Cohen's player to lose, essentially, right? The same way that you could tell Correa wanted to be with the Mets and Cohen, after what we had heard that they had negotiations, but it got to the 11th hour and Boras is never going to turn down the biggest contract, right? So even in a restructure, I still Bleav the Mets will have the biggest contract on the table among the teams that have interest. The Giants are out. The Giants aren't getting back involved with Correa. They wouldn't even consider going forward. They just want more time to discuss the physical, the medical, and they weren't getting it for obvious reasons because Boras doesn't work that way. So I'm not concerned about another team swooping in here, as I just am. What exactly is this deal going to look like now? And even that, I don't necessarily have a concern about. I mean, I'll be blunt. I mean, if the Mets somehow, some way, and again, if it stays 12 years, $350 million, that's fine. A lot of different things could change in the contract internally, with it still being that amount of years and that amount of money. Guaranteed money can change, however. What I will say, and I was saying this earlier, Pat Mets, is that if the Mets somehow, some way got this deal down a couple of years, that's a win for Mets fans. Because again, Carlos Correa is not going to be a stud his entire career. He's not going to be fully healthy for the entirety of that contract at all. I don't think anyone believes that. And I fully Bleav that Carlos Correa very well will retire prior to his contract even finishing with the Mets. So if the Mets, again, have any shot, if they can get maybe, just maybe, this deal lessen a little bit by just even 10 years, 38 versus 40 can be huge for the Mets down the stretch in this deal. Looking back, a decade later, we have no clue. But I mean, anything past 10 years is already like, you don't love that. You love it now. You love the AAV. You love what he can bring to this team for the next 5-6 years, right? After that is where you have your concerns. So from a long-term standpoint, the Mets, again, a year, 2+ off, who's complaining as a Mets fan? I sure as hell am not. And I don't know why anyone else would. And again, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if that were to happen, I think that would even be better for this team. And I think most would agree. Pat Mets, thank you for the donation. Let's see here. Ed, thank you for the dono as well. Let's see, Wardy, I would think that it gets done. I'm just worried because Giants thought the same thing. Also, does leaking this info create bad blood? I don't know. Who did it get leaked by? Is this first coming from Boras? Is it possible? Yes, but I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's a bad blood situation right off the riff. I really don't know. Thank you for the dono, though, Ed. I appreciate that. Jesus, Danielle, thank you for the $10 donation. 10 years, 305, and some insurance on the ankle, and the deal should be done. Insurance, key to that, absolutely. The Twins are the only team with 10-year for him, and Correa will not take a short-term deal. And again, here's the thing. If Correa gets offered a similar deal by the Twins with like slight adjustments, changes, do you really think Carlos Correa would go back to Minnesota? I don't. I think he wants to be a New York Met. I truly believe that. I think Steve Cohen has completely sold him. It's now just about getting the nitty-gritty done regarding this deal. Thank you so much for the donut, Jesus. I appreciate that. Revival, thank you for the donation. Ankle, foot injuries usually lead to upper limb compensations. It could be his ankle is going to mess with his back and knees. In that case, 5-year deal seems like the limit. Now, it's going to be more than 5 years. I would be shocked if it wasn't. Personally, I would really be shocked if it wasn't like at least 8 to 10 years. I would be hard-pressed to believe it would be a 5-year deal. That would make no sense for Correa at the same time, too. Unless he has no market where he can't get anything more than 5 years, makes no sense for him at this point in his career. He'll be 33 then by the time that contract is done, and he already would have hit the peak in his career. Absolutely zero concern with this. Relax, Matt. See, Matt's feeling very confident. I like the confidence, Matt. Thank you. Oh, wait. Also, shout out to Matt. He runs a great podcast called Till Mets Do Us Part. Please make sure to check it out. I always love my fellow Mets fans and Mets content creators of all kinds. So appreciate you, Matt. Hope you're doing well, my man. Happy holidays to you. Let's get into, and again, I know we got more topics I want to get into. Just the small signing and Danny Mendick the Mets did a couple nights ago because I like that move and I want to explain what it could mean for the Mets infield. James McCann being traded, we already really talked about. I won't harp on much, but I want to expand a little bit more on Hendriks relievers. So like I said, I'm hoping that we hit all of these topics before the show ends. I don't know how long the live stream is going to be, but it's going to be at least a decent bit because we got a lot to get into. See, and then we got fans in here and saying I'm really, really concerned. I get it. There's always going to be fans that are more concerned than others. I understand. Nightingale tweeted. I'll check Nightingale's tweet. Give me 1 second, everybody. But while I do to my roughly 1,000 viewers, make sure to smash those like and subscribe on. Always means a lot, folks. Thank you so much. What did the boob himself tweet? Let's see here. According to Bob Nightingale, he says the following. The most logical conclusion is that Correa remains with the Mets, but with the contract language included to protect NY if his past leg injury causes him to miss significant time. The Red Sox did the same thing in 2018 with JD Martinez's $110 million deal when they had concerns with his foot. Yeah, just get insurance on this. Just get insurance. If you just get insurance, you're fine. You know, the Mets will be. That's the and this actually leads me to a good point. The Mets have a very interesting contract with Kodai Senga, in which the details indicate that, you know, there is a certain opt-out after 2028 and based on innings, and if he gets Tommy John surgery. Here, listen to this to give you guys an idea as to how technical contracts can get. This one isn't even as crazy as DeGrom's, but in reference to the Mets here, let's say it. This was reported from Michael Mayer on December 22nd regarding Kodai Senga's contract. It is the following for Kodai Senga. $14 million annual for 2023 to 2027 and a $5 million signing bonus. $15 million conditional club option for 2028 if Tommy John surgery or right elbow injury causing to be placed on IL more than 130 consecutive days. See how detailed that is? Opt out after 2025 season if 400 innings pitched in 2023 to 2025. So just to give you guys an example as to how the Mets are going to get creative with this, the insurance thing fully feels realistic, in my opinion. You need to do that. It makes perfect sense. Hopefully that can get done. They're in active discussions as we speak to get a deal done and finalized here. And, you know, if the Mets announce Correa tomorrow on Christmas, then that'll be fantastic, you know. So this is something that's going to hold a lot of short-term life with what's happening right now. But all in all, I understand Mets fans skepticisms, concerns. But I think people are going to look back at this, you know, just a day or two later, and we're going to know that things were finalized. And the only reason why I'm not going live later tonight to discuss this, I know it's earlier in the day, folks, is because it's Christmas Eve. I got 2 Christmases to celebrate. Tonight is at my girl's house with her family, and they're Puerto Ricans, so they're cooking it up. They always like to celebrate the night before Christmas. I don't know if that's just a Spanish thing or that's just to them, but I got that going tonight after I go to mass, and then tomorrow I'm on Christmas. I'm celebrating with my family. So all I ask, Mets, all I ask, do not come out with any nonsense. If this deal falls out, I'll be pissed, but wait until Monday, please, for everyone, please. That's all I ask. My goodness, it's a Latino thing. Yeah, I figured it was, but yeah, that's all I ask. Okay, I don't want to see any more major stuff. All I want to see from now until Monday, if at all, is that everything's cleared. They get the contract done and it's finalized. I don't got to harp on it much anymore. I'm just happy it's done. See, look at me ranting. Why I gotta be like this on Christmas Eve? Michael, thank you for the donation. I feel confident because he really wants to play with Lindor. Absolutely. Michael, thank you for the dono. Make it make sense. It's Christmas. Appreciate the dono. Mets fan, what's up, brother? I can't do this today. Again, don't think the sky's falling. I know you tend to do that, my friend. Don't think you here. I just feel a lot more confident about this than maybe I should be. I'm really not all that concerned by this as much as others are. No concerns in the UK, mate. It will be the absolute scenes. Merry Christmas, everyone, guys. Same to you, Darren. Absolute scenes indeed. Great member. One of the best Mets fans you'll ever meet. Dude, did I say Guillermo? If I say, I don't think I said Guillermo. Maybe someone in the chat did. Thank you so much, though. I appreciate that. It's called Noche Buena, Wardy. Oh. Okay. Steve Cohen is in way too deep. He wants to win right. Further reaffirming everything that I'm saying. I disagree with even until New Year's. There's a very strong likelihood that we will find out the full details on everything with Correa, whether he's finalizing a deal or not and becomes official by the Mets and has a presser, or it falls through. I can almost guarantee we will find that out prior to New Year's. I'm fully confident. Boris said that there's a strong likelihood that the physical, the deal would be finalized by Christmas, before Christmas. Obviously, that's slimmer than it was before, just what Boris said 48 hours ago, because I'd imagine he made that statement without believing that the Mets would have any issue with the physical, and yet here we are again. But it still holds true. I do believe that everything is going to get announced prior to New Year's. I do. What caused our mini collapse in late 2022? Did the NL adjust to the Mets? Did our guys get to I think it went in hand with the Mets getting a little bit tired, and I think the Mets, the pressure they had on their back from the Braves all year long in the division, got caught up to them, and they played down to lesser competition in the final month. Those are the main factors, I would say. Some fatigue, couldn't handle the pressure down the stretch, and downplaying lesser competition when they had the easiest schedule on paper in all baseball in the final month, and they played like shit. So, but that's 2022. That's in the past now. All right, guys, let me read off. I'm going to read off for everyone that's curious. We're half hour in the show already. Let me read off quick exactly what the details of this say from Ken Rosenthal. The New York Mets, like the San Francisco Giants earlier this week, have raised concerns about Carlos Correa's surgically repaired lower right leg, potentially jeopardizing their 12-year, $350 million agreement. Keyword potentially. Again, I will be very, very surprised if this falls through. According to people briefed on the matter who were not authorized to speak publicly. Okay, so people who were not authorized to speak publicly, and yet this comes out, Ken. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It's almost like it would have been nicer not to hear this shit become public prior to Christmas. Literally, this is going to give people agita for no fucking reason. That I feel for the fans that are going to think the worst from the jump. That's what annoys me most about this. You couldn't wait until after Christmas. God forbid, you schmuck. The parties could agree to a restructured contract if the Mets continue to express reservations about the long-term stability of Correa's leg. It might be difficult for the Mets to back out of the agreement entirely after their owner, Steve Cohen, went on record talking about the deal. It also might be difficult for Correa to re-enter the free agent market and land a comparable contract after two clubs identify the same issue in their physical examinations of him. The new developments are the latest twist in the saga that shocked the baseball world when Correa and his agent, Scott Boras, pivoted Wednesday from their original $13 million, 13-year, $350 million agreement with the Giants to strike a separate deal with the Mets. Confirmed his apparent coup to the New York Post, saying, "We needed one more thing, and this is it." Major League Baseball warns teams not to comment publicly on pending agreements, noting such remarks might persuade an arbiter to side with the player in a grievance, a former executive said. The Mets remain uncomfortable with Correa's long-term prognosis. One way to alter the agreement will be to insert language saying that portions of the deal would not be guaranteed if Correa missed a set amount of time with a specific leg problem. Boras, however, might fight any attempt to alter the deal because that is what Scott Boras tend to be known for. Correa, who has played 148 and 136 games the past 2 seasons, underwent his physical with the Mets on Thursday after being, of course, I'm saying this out of my own mouth, after he got a private jet from Houston to New York from Steve Cohen himself. Teams generally make agreements official the day after the player's medical exams unless an issue arises like this. The Giants were set to follow precisely that plan earlier in the week. San Francisco struck its deal with Correa on December 13th. Correa underwent his physical on Monday, and the Giants scheduled an introductory news conference for Tuesday. But the team postponed the news conference that morning and later confirmed a difference of opinion over the results of Carlos's physical examination. So that is where I'll halt things regarding the reading. If you want to read the entire thing, to make sure to check it out when you can. Giants fans are laughing at Mets fans right now. Here's the thing, Victor. It doesn't matter because the difference is that the Giants weren't even willing to get to the point of restructuring and deal with Boras. They wanted more time to go over things, and Boras wouldn't allow it. So Giants fans can laugh all they want, but until we get to the point where this completely falls through, it doesn't matter. I feel for Giants fans. They have nothing else on this offseason. The only satisfaction they can get right now. So again, give it to them. If this is their Christmas came early present by being petty, then so be it. Let me see what the donations are, though. Let me address a couple more. And then, my Wi-Fi is dropping like a mofo. Guys, if my visuals look worse than usual, if I look uglier than usual, I assure you that'll pick back up in a minute once the visuals get better with the Wi-Fi. And I do Bleav it's about to get up right now. And that's what she said. Let's see. Ferdinand, thank you so much for the dono. He says, I hope he's doing okay. He's dealing with all this stuff on Christmas Eve. Carlos wants to play for an organization that wants to win and have fun. And that is the New York Mets, 100%. I can, dude, the freaking, the vibes, the Puerto Rican vibes at City are going to be insane next year. Blessing in disguise. Merry Christmas, Rory. You too, Grant. Love you, brother. Make sure to check out Jenny Metz, as always, folks. Greatly appreciate that on Twitter. One of the best, over 50,000 followers on Twitter. Merry Christmas, Rory. Love your channel. Love your watching your live stream. Love you too, Michael. Thank you so much. God bless. Merry Christmas. Hogwatch trying to do all he can to chime in because he's miserable. Shout out to you, Borna. Love you, brother. Just as ugly as always. Exactly. Okay. So a couple things I want to hit on here, and then we'll get back to Correa because we've already talked about him for a half hour. Anything from this point on is just me reiterating everything that I was saying. Let me talk briefly on what else has been put out there for you guys, okay? And that is the following. Mets, as of now, have Correa on 12 years, $350 million, pending the details of that contract, assuming it does not fall out. Mets, a day later, the night that they did the move for James McCann, that 24 hours, within those 24 hours, they trade James McCann for a player to be named later, 75% of the contract for McCann, $19 million over the next 2 years, just to get that schmuck out of Queens. Wishing him all the best, regardless in Baltimore. Again, great guy, did a lot of great things for the community. Unfortunately for McCann, he just was not a good player here, and he certainly wasn't worth his contract. The Mets are still saving $8 million by dumping him to Baltimore, and the Mets get a player to be named later. That will be no one satisfying because it was strictly a salary dump. And a move that I want to do a video on, but I'm only just talking about in the live stream now, because it's a smaller deal. It's not a groundbreaking deal, but it's a very interesting one to me. And that is Danny Mendick signing with the Mets on a 1-year deal. Now, for those that don't know, briefly who Danny Mendick is, he's an infielder from the Chicago White Sox. He's under team control still until 2027, has 2 minor league options left, so there's no guarantee that he'll even start the year with the Mets. However, as of right now, he signed a major league contract, so I'd imagine they will be. Mendick, who's a 29-year-old, 5'10", 195-pounder, plays second base, plays shortstop. This past season, played short for 22 games, second base for 6 games, third base for 2 games, and left field for 1 game. Again, didn't play too many games this past season, but when called upon, 31 games, had himself a solid, little spice of a campaign. 3 home runs, 22 runs scored, 15 RBIs, 1 stolen bag in those 31 games, a roughly 290 average, a 343 OBP, and a 443 slug for a 125 WRC plus and a just under 1 WAR. Mendick is going to bring depth to this Mets infield, either going to start the year in AAA or on this roster. And with the assumption that very well Mets could trade an Eduardo Escobar possibly this offseason, with trade talks continuing with the Chicago White Sox in part of a Hendriks trade among other potential fits, assuming that Correa gets done, as much as we love Eduardo Escobar, maybe he could be a bench guy / a DH guy, that very well can happen. If not, the Mets want to maximize value. They could trade him because they won't need him as that everyday third baseman because Correa would be here. That would be the situation going forward for the next decade plus, assumably. So Mendick is an interesting element. The Mets have to free up 2 roster spots as of now, with the assumption that both, Mendick is cleared, we know that, but also Carlos Correa. So with the assumption that if the Carlos Correa signing is finalized and that everything gets cleared out there, the Mets need to make 2 roster moves because they're 2 players above the 40-man. So they have more moves that are certainly going to be had here over the next week, I would say. It's just a matter of to what degree, and again, with the assumption that Correa's deal does not fall through and it continues with this team. Let me address some donos. Let's see. Oh, my goodness. Eric with the $50 holla. Thank you so much for that donation, Eric. I greatly appreciate hyping the chat to you. God bless my friend. Everyone, hyping the chat to Eric for the $50 donation. That really means a lot, brother. Merry Christmas, Rory, and thanks for all you do. You're the first, your first 2 beers of City Field in 2023 are on me. I appreciate that so much, my man. Thank you so much. I cannot wait to go to games next year. It's gonna be a freaking movie every time we're there. We're gonna be dancing all different music. It's gonna be lit. It's gonna be so much fun. Eric, thank you so much for the donation. Love you, my man. Happy holidays to you. Merry Christmas. God bless. Let's see. He does know how to manage risk. Yes. It's almost like he has an idea of what risk management is all about. That's a fair comment. I think he's going to actually be better at third base defensively. I do. 2, I think Correa is going to hit 30-plus bombs in multiple seasons with the Mets as long as the deal goes through, because he's likely going to add some more weight and gain more power at that position. And I think he's going to drive in more RBIs than he ever has in his career because he's playing with the Mets. Correa was with the Minnesota Twins last year, all right? Imagine how much more offensive upside he has in this lineup. Just imagine that. The potential is through the roof. It's banana land, okay? I mean, we know what he's done in Houston, and those Houston lineups were phenomenal when he was there. But let's not denounce the offensive upside the Mets have with the assumption of Correa being in that lineup. It's ginormous. All right, guys, let's get to a couple more things because we're going to wrap up the show, I'd imagine, the next 15, 20 minutes. So we've talked a lot about Correa. If you're just chiming in wondering, about Correa, make sure to go back earlier in the show. And to my roughly 1,000 viewers, again, help us get a 400 plus likes here in the live stream. Greatly appreciate it. I don't know where we're at in the like count, but really does mean a lot. But keep in mind that the Mets, they're not done making moves. Putting this Correa situation aside, let's go with the belief that everything is still going to pan out perfectly fine, right? And yeah, I know Correa is a very good defender. He wasn't good in outs above average this past year, but I think that was, an anomaly in his career. And he's never going to play shortstop again as long as he's a Met, too. Talking about the Mets and more moves to be had. It was reported from Michael Mayer. It was reported from others right after the Mets finalized the deal with both Correa and then Danny Mendick, is that they're still in the market for another bat, assumably a 4th outfield bat. You look at the AJ Pollocks, Adam Duvall's, and the Jerks and Profars. One of those 3 has a very strong likelihood of landing in Queens, if you're asking for my opinion at this point in time. And 2, reliever-wise, the Mets have been linked for the past number of days now with Liam Hendriks. Now, Bob Nightingale did report that the White Sox obviously do not want to trade Liam Hendriks. However, no one wants to trade an all-star closer. The fact that they have put his name out there is because they are fielding offers, and the Mets are among teams interested. Through Michael Marino, independent reporter covering the Mets and all baseball, did make note a couple days ago that players that have been mentioned in discussions of a potential deal with the White Sox are as follows. Not only there that we see with James McCann, that is out of the equation now because McCann actually had the White Sox on his 5-team no-trade list. Yes, we gave that man a 5-team no trade list. Because why? Sam Yellerson. That's why, because he was running things when we signed him, unfortunately. Putting McCann aside, Mark Vientos, which I don't really know how that makes any sense for the White Sox. I really don't, because they have a number of guys that are right-hand power bat potential, that DH first base, mostly profile. Vientos cannot play third competently at the MLB level right now. So keep that in mind. Liam Hendriks, the big one. Eloy Jimenez's name has been involved, and I don't think that is a strong likelihood at all. But if the Mets somehow, some way pulled off a trade for Liam Hendriks and Eloy Jimenez, this team is so ready for next season. Eloy Jimenez is one of the best young power bats in all of baseball. The only issues he's had is he hasn't been fully healthy for the start of his career. He played around 90 games this past season. Absolutely raked, though. The guy is a slugging machine, lots of power. Not a great fielder, however, so more of that DH type. He would automatically become the primary DH for the Mets if they acquired him. And, of course, can put him in the left field at times if you really need him to, but not the best idea. Not a great defender at all from what I've seen. Another name is Eduardo Escobar and Joe Kelly. The Bleav with Joe Kelly is that even though he had an abysmal season with the White Sox, expected ERA was around 3.25 or so, but baseline ERA was 6+. So Joe Kelly did not get any defensive help this past year in his situations, was a far better pitcher looking at his advanced metrics and analytics than it was his baseline ERA. But the Bleav in acquiring Joe Kelly is that you're eating his contract if the Mets will be willing for another year or two, and that way it would lessen the blow of what you would have to give up for, say, Liam Hendriks and or Eloy Jimenez. Now, do I think a blockbuster with the White Sox is likely right now? No, I do not. However, the Mets are certainly in the market for another reliever. And if that becomes Liam Hendriks, then they have an embarrassment of riches. They have the best bullpen in baseball. But if they don't go the Liam Hendriks route, which is also very much a likelihood, they could pursue a trade for a reliever elsewhere. There is, again, an abundance of relievers out there that you can get at a reasonable price. And if the Mets are willing to trade the type of assets that they're discussing, who's not to say that they could consider an Alexis Diaz potentially from the Cincinnati Reds? Yes, he has a high trade value because he came off of a great rookie year campaign. Of course, the younger brother of Edwin Diaz. The Mets tried to trade for Alexis back at the 2022 trade deadline, but the value was too high. He's still under team control till like 2027, 2028. So he's got a lot of value right now. But if the Mets are willing to trade Vientos, Escobar's name's been thrown in there. I mean, Diaz would be amazing to pair with his older brother, and Edwin, obviously, that would be fantastic. And there are many other names out there. There's relievers out there I could see the Mets considering. Andrew Chafin, I don't think is very likely, but I won't say he's impossible because Steve Cohen, the biggest thing he can control right now is still the money he works with. I mean, Steve Cohen, since he became owner, has spent over $1.6 million in total contracts, including the Carlos Correa deal as of now. That is double the next team in baseball, which is the Yankees at 800 and I believe 850 to 800 or is it 830 million or so, I believe. So yeah, he spent double the amount of money as the next closest owner in all baseball since becoming owner. And he spent $800 million, including Correa right now, in total contracts this offseason alone. The Mets have spent more money than any other team in North American sports as of right now. It's absurd. So yeah, I don't think he would mind too much throwing, some more millions at a reliever if he really needs to. The market isn't that deep. Zach Britton, could they consider a reclamation project to rekindle a Buck Showalter? Hopefully won't need to be put in a high leverage situation because we know that Buck won't do it because he didn't do it in 2016 with the Orioles. But all jokes aside, Mets still have reliever options out there. Liam Hendriks is towards the top of the list, but how likely is that? That's a great question mark. I mean, literally one of the best relievers, let alone closers in the game. It'll be very easier said than done as long as the White Sox have a competent front office. I have heard as well that the Mets are not fielding offers, I should say, but they've at least heard that there's been strong trade interest for Ronnie Mauricio. Mauricio, one of the Mets' top infield prospects, just won Winter League Player of the Year in the Dominican Winter League, led them in most statistics, absolutely raked, was phenomenal. The switch hitting, soon-to-be potential power bat for the Mets, who's gained a tremendous amount of weight. Phenomenal story. I believe what happened with if I'm not mistaken, regarding Ronnie Mauricio, and don't quote me on this because I could be wrong, but I did see that I believe that his mother had passed away, or at least she was ill, and that really took an impact on him and his diet and just his mental health for a long time. But it seems like Ronnie Mauricio is getting to a point in his young career now where he's getting the most comfortable now, and that was on full display in the Dominican Winter League over the past 2 months. So he wins Player of the Year there. Awesome in that tournament, whatever you want to call it there, that league, right? And he is getting trade interest. And Mauricio currently is blocked with the Mets on the future of him being in Queens because they have this guy named Francisco Lindor at short for the next decade. That is where Mauricio plays. So he would have to shift to third base, second base, which is possible. There is a possibility where Jeff McNeil does not play his entire career with the Mets. Wouldn't shock me if that happened, for instance. And third base, assuming Correa gets done, then third base is blocked. Could be considering left field. Same thing could be with Brett Beatty. But Mets, as long as Correa is finalized and that gets figured out, I truly Bleav that'll be the case. The Mets will have a great opportunity now to get creative with their prospects. They can hold on to these guys for as long as they want. They want to reaffirm that depth, maybe consider them in secondary positions like corner outfield, because Mark Canha is not on a long-term contract. He's up after this year. There is a option after this upcoming season, I Bleav, though, just like Eduardo Escobar's deal. Or, they could trade them at the right price for pitching over the next year, the next couple years, whatever they want to do. Mets have so many more options in their favor if they land Correa versus if they don't. And that is just one of the many reasons as to why Carlos Correa makes so much sense for this team. I pray to God that everything works out. I Bleav that it will be finalized. Let's see. Mets are buying damaged goods. T. Nelson, watch the whole stream if you haven't already, and then come back to me, okay? Correa is fully healthy right now. The concern is long-term with his health and his leg. It's not a short-term thing. If it was a short-term thing, the Mets wouldn't have even considered the deal the same way no other team would have at this point. Yet again, Cohen could buy Correa a new leg. This is also true. This is very true. Correa could be the first amputee in all of baseball, for all we know. I'm joking, obviously. God forbid. That would be terrible, right? Point I'm trying to make, again, is that while there are natural concerns with Carlos Correa and what is going on between the Mets and his camp and his physical, just like the Giants, there's far more optimism on this point, according to Michael Mayer, Mets Rise, that a deal to get done is still likely. And again, it's Christmas Eve. Let's not stress about this. In all seriousness, for everyone that celebrates the holiday, whatever holiday you're spending, guys, please do not let this be a damper on things. I truly hope that every single one of you has a phenomenal holiday, spends it greatly with all your loved ones. And again, hopefully we come back on Monday at earliest and we see that everything is finalized. Spick and span, perfectly fine. A restructured deal, more incentives, insurance in the deal, whatever it has to be to make sure that Carlos Correa is the Mets starting third baseman to start the 2023 season and for the years going forward. Let me get to this donation. Goomba, thank you so much. I appreciate that a lot. Merry Christmas and congrats on 20K, bro. Correa staying Met. Yep. I fully am under that Bleav. Thank you so much, Goomba. Merry Christmas to you too. God bless. I'm not worried at all about this. Says Justin. Uncle Steve knew what was won this report, and my guess is that this was to help San Francisco save some face. That's an interesting viewpoint from the San Francisco standpoint, Justin. Fair. Merry Christmas, bud. Appreciate all you do. That is interesting. I know that Andy Martino did reaffirm this. It's been reaffirmed everywhere. One thing I want to make note of about this from the article, and this is, again, what pisses me off. I wasn't even joking when I said this. I'm not going to put those two words together. It's Christmas Eve, and Ken Rosenthal goes out of his way to be first on this report. And his sources are, according to, and I quote, people briefed on the matter who were not, keyword, not authorized to speak publicly. Okay? Not authorized to speak publicly. I understand, Ken. I understand why you had to get this out there. I get it. Maybe you don't care about the holidays as much as Mets fans that want to be stress-free. But that is the biggest thing. From people who are not authorized to speak publicly on this matter. And Ken hears that. He's like, I am pressing that damn button and posting this article right fucking now. That's what pisses me off the most. Why couldn't this have waited until at least Monday? Sunday night even, when Christmas is wrapping up. Okay, you start your day early with your kids. You open the damn gifts. You under the Christmas tree. You take the photos. You have the breakfast. You get the family over for the evening. You do whatever you got to do. And this drops towards the end of the night. Okay. Okay. Why now? So annoying. So annoying. I know it was dropped for a reason. And yes, you very well can be accurate here. It doesn't change the fact that it's still annoying. And I don't see how this cannot be annoying if you're a Mets fan. Can NYM get insurance for the Correa contract? Hopefully. Now, I don't know where this stands with Boris and insurance. I have no clue. I don't know his background on negotiating deals with insurance or anything of that nature. I do not know, but all I would say is that hopefully, because you'd have to imagine that that is something the Mets would like to do. Me delaying the podcast I edited for 8 hours straight until we get an update on this. Mets fan, I love the grind there, but I'm telling you right now, for a podcast, you should not be editing 8 hours. I'm telling you right now. I love the grind. I love that. But for your own sanity, this is going to happen so much more often that is in your best interest to at least narrow that down to half. Okay? Editing's awesome, but I promise you, for your own health, stuff like this will happen more often. Not so much this offseason, because the offseason, when the Mets have done the bulk of things, but for in-season stuff especially, I'm just telling you right now, it's going to be the biggest pain. Take it from me. You have no idea how much content I made that has never been posted over the past 2 years. You have no idea how much prep work I've done, hours and hours on end of things that ended up never happening or never amounted to anything. So take it from one creator to another, one fellow podcaster. Do not waste your time 8 hours on a podcast that is no longer than an hour. I assure you, it is not worth it. Just telling you right now. You will thank me later, I promise. It's just the thought of that gives me a freaking migraine. Happy for Conforto, I am. Yeah, we didn't even get a chance to talk about Michael Conforto. You know, of course, the Giants, they lost out on Aaron Judge. They lost out on Carlos Correa. So as a counter, they go and get Michael Conforto. Talk about health concerns with Correa. They're not concerned with Conforto's shoulder, but different situations. Conforto's a short-term deal. $36 million, though. I am happy. Michael's getting $18 million per year. Hell yeah, Michael. Get your money, baby. That's more than I thought Michael was getting. Abso-freaking-lutely. I hope Conforto balls out in San Francisco. He's my favorite player when he was on the Mets. I wish him all the best. I know he's going to kick our ass when we play him, just like Jock Pearson did this past year. So I'm already preparing myself ahead of time. But more than anything, I am happy for Michael Conforto. I'm happy that he's reuniting with J.D. Davis and Wilmer Flores. That's awesome. They got the little band back together there. You know, the gains all here from SpongeBob. If you know, you know. But yeah, I'm happy for Conforto. I really am. It sucks to see him gone. But again, I'm also someone that is biasly a heavy Michael Conforto fan. There's nothing I can do. Nothing I can do about it. I always will be. Unless he goes on like the Phillies or the Braves. And I don't know. Tyler, you think this was a leak on purpose to hurt the Mets and their spending? Not to hurt the Mets and their it depends on where this leak is coming from. I mean, normally when leaks like this happen, it's coming from the agency camp, so you have to look at Boris right away. But at the same time, I'm not sure. This is a leverage situation more than anything. I mean, is this at all possible that this was leaked from a third party that found out this information that is not fond of Steve Cohen and the spending he's doing? That is absolutely a possibility. But I'm not one to sit here and make all these different assumptions when we simply don't know. So, yeah, I don't know. Really don't know, Edwin. But guys, with that being said, we're an hour into the show. I'm going to get out of here. I hope you all have a blessed, happy holiday, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, you know, Happy Hanukkah, everything that you guys are doing holiday-wise, no matter what it is. I hope you have a blessed holiday. Seriously, I assure you we will be back covering on the channel as soon as Monday. I'm really hoping I don't have to do anything on Christmas Day. That would be ridiculous. I'm not interested in doing that. So fingers crossed I don't have to. We'll be back early next week per usual, I'm sure. But guys, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. try your best not to stress out too much about this as a Mets fan until proven otherwise. If it falls through, then you have all the right in the world to be pissed off, including myself. But I'm putting my foot down when I say I'm not concerned nearly as much as maybe others on this matter, unless, again, something else comes up from now until the next time we speak. But God bless, guys. Thank you so much. Feliz Navidad as well. Thank you so much for the donut. David Red had insurance worked into his contract. If I'm not mistaken, why not Correa get it done? Yes, it's very well a possibility. Fingers crossed. All I hope is that something gets done and finalized during the later. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays, Mets fans. Let's go, Mets. Carlos Correa, I do believe you'll be a New York Met. Let's just see that happen, baby. All right, guys. Peace out. Have a great one. Happy holidays, folks. God bless.